we're going to do a really good interview here today and introduce y'all to someone that you need to get to know, and that's Daniel Butierez, who's running for office.
I took off my armor, I dropped down and said, here I am, I'm a flawed man, okay? And I know a lot of politicians want to run around like they're perfect in every way. The state absolutely admitted I was innocent and that I had never been convicted. It was kind of foolish of anybody to get in it. I mean, I got more votes than any Republican ever in the last election against an incumbent. I think politicians really hurting our country. And that's kind of why I wanted to step in and run. They had to pay the cartel some way. And I know it's the children, and I knew it was disgusting. The reason Trump wanted the wall built, and he wants them to come to a port of entry, not just anywhere along the border, they would feel free to come across, was for the children. And under her and all this cronyism, 900 homeless camps in Tucson. And she was in a position that she could have done something about that. She didn't, but she's going to go in and fight Trump. She's absolutely not going to do anything for Arizona. This is my home. I'm ready to go work for the people of Arizona. And I will go in and work with the administration, not fight against the administration, and bring resources back to Arizona. That's one of the reasons I'm running for Congress, because for every parent out there that has a child that's lost, I'm the answer. I'm there for them.
Doesn't end well unless it ends. Can't just report the fucking obvious.
I don't care what a critic got to say, I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life, I'm about to come and
Just
run
a
it all back.
motherfucking jump. Just go. Let's fucking go. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy, and we're going to do a really good interview here today and introduce y'all to someone that you need to get to know, and that's Daniel Butierez, who's running for office in a special election that is the only one, right? It's the only
federal election right now.
Yeah, and this is to go sit in Washington D.C. Yeah. And that other voice you hear, of course, is Leo. And it's so important because they think they probably got it in the bag because this is a Democratic-leaning district and has been for a long time. But there's a tide that's shifted in this country, and it's very, very close. The Republicans only own the House or, run the House by a handful of seats. In fact, President Trump had to ask someone that he had appointed to be in his team in office to go back to her seat in New York because we couldn't give up that seat, kind of thing. So Daniel here is an important man, and we're glad to have you on the show.
Well, thank
you
for
for coming.
Troy.
Yeah. Let's start, the big goal for me today is for people to kind of get a background from you, get to know you, your personal background, get to know who Daniel really is. And so, starting, your family, you're like third generation Arizonan?
Actually, I had started off saying I was a third generation. I was speaking, and my mom had come down from New York, and she was listening to me speak. And when I was done, she came over and said, honey, that's not exactly true. I said, what do you mean, Mom? She goes, your family was here before the United States was here. You didn't come from Mexico. You were already here. So, we were here before Arizona was a state. And I wasn't aware of that. My mom educated me on that. So
that's kind of cool, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, well,
that's as native as it gets, right?
Well, absolutely. I started doing a lot of research and deeper into it. My ancestors stood beside the Indians, and we built the Santa Vera Mission. So we've been here for hundreds of years. I got thousands of family members buried in the soil. And that's one of the issues that's really bothering me with this race, because all of a sudden, it looks like there's only one other guy got in the race. But
for your primary,
we're talking about primary,
right? And
which was kind of foolish of anybody to get in it. I mean, I got more votes than any Republican ever in the last election against an incumbent. I didn't have hardly any money. I ran with $78,000. I have name recognition across all southern Arizona, well, practically the entire state of Arizona now, because a lot of people are talking about what I accomplished.
A lot of people are going to talk about this in a lot of states now.
So I now have approximately $150,000 in my war chest. I've got, I doubled my signs, my big 4x8s. I bought a new supply of yard signs. So I've already got everything I need to put out there. I've got commercials getting ready to release. I've already paid for the time for those. We just got done filming the commercials this weekend. So, and the guy I'm running against doesn't even live in my district. He wasn't born here in the United States. He doesn't live in my district. And all of a sudden he wants to run. That's cool. You know, this is America, free country. I think it's going to waste money that I don't need to spend and money he doesn't have to spend. So it's just, I think it was a waste of time, but it is what it is. There's always a plus to it.
Yeah. Well, you get your signs out earlier.
Yeah.
And the thing is, your signs won't get lost amongst all the other signs for school issues, everything, because it's just going to be you and, you know, whoever. I mean, we probably know who the Democratic nominee is going to be likely, but like there's been a bunch of them jump in, like 7 or 8. So like they have, so she's going to have to spend some money as well.
She's going to spend a lot of money.
Future opponent, who is the daughter of the person that you ran against before, right?
Yep. Well, she's going to have to spend a massive money because, like the guy I'm running against, well, she's got more name recognition than him, but she doesn't have the name recognition that I have.
Right.
Because nobody knows who she is in Yuma. They don't know who she is over in Douglas. She was in Tucson. That's all she knows. She a career politician like her dad. And I think it's time to end that. I think it's time that we bring someone in that's not a politician, someone who actually connects with the community, a working man just like the constituents within CD7, because most of us are Hispanic. I'm Hispanic, and we're the sons and daughters of cotton pickers, miners. I mean, our parents were workers, not politicians. And I think politicians really hurting the country.
Well, we've lost that with our representatives because that was the whole idea behind it in the first place, at least what our forefathers had. As I understand it, you should come for maybe a couple terms or so. But, you know, back in Ohio where I'm from, you know, we had one person like had been in office for 30 some years. You know, that was not the vision of our forefathers. It was who created this great country. It was to come and serve, you know, come out of your farm or your business, do your service and go back home.
Yep.
And these people that stick around forever and ever or never have any background in business or a job or, you know, really working. I don't get it. But certainly, I think small business owners have been underrepresented for a long time. And we can get to that and talk about that too. But what about like childhood brothers, sisters? Like what was it like growing up for you?
Well, my dad was Mexican, my mom was Irish, so I grew up being called a half-breed, you know, and you learn to fight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you did. You learned to fight. But
well, and being Mexican and Irish, you probably were a pretty damn good fighter.
Yeah, I actually got to where nobody could beat me up anymore. That's for sure. But then my dad taught me to be a worker. My grandfather, he was Filomeno Gutierrez. That was my family's name, was Gutierrez with a G. And my grandmother, Ramona Calderon, they were hard workers. They grew up picking cotton, working in the fields, and they raised my father and his brothers and sisters, and they were hard workers, and they raised their children to be hard workers. And it's kind of dying off from there because everyone's getting more laxed. We feel like we're entitled to stuff. You know, not you or I, but
Right. No,
there's a generation coming out right now. It's getting bigger and bigger. It's not everybody, but it's getting bigger and bigger, of people that believe that they're entitled to what another person has, that they shouldn't have to earn it like they did. They should just be given it to them. And that's kind of why I wanted to step in and run, because someone needs to stop this and this cronyism that we've got jumping off here, because it is. I mean, we got a guy that sat in Washington for 22 years.
Yeah, just like I was saying. Yeah,
And he got all family and friends in different offices of government, and they all worked together against we the people. And now he's passed away, God rest his soul. But they want to continue the cronyism and bring in the next family member. Okay, we're not as the Democrats like to say, an oligarchy.
Yeah,
an oligarchy or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we don't need a king, and we don't need the throne to be passed down to the next generation. It's just not the way it works. We need to end that. We need to stop that. Remember, we're America, and we're the home of the free. And the individual that will probably be the nominee has never. She's right now. She was the Pima County Board of Supervisors. She was the chair. Okay? And under her and all this cronyism, the homeless population in Tucson has gone up to 900 homeless camps. 900 homeless camps in Tucson. And she was in a position that she could have done something about that. She didn't. So if she couldn't fix this situation when she had all the power, what does anybody really think she's going to do when she gets into Washington? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. She's going to go in and fight against Trump. She says that's what she's going to do. I'm going to stop Trump. I'm going to stop Trump. We're going to end it. Okay, let me tell you all something. While she's in there fighting Trump and stopping Trump, which she's not going to be able to do, but she's going to go in and fight Trump, she's absolutely not going to do anything for Arizona. And I'm going to basically let everyone know that this is my home. I built 2 companies. I built a life from nothing. I built a business from nothing. And I'm ready to go work for the people of Arizona. And I will go in and work with the administration, not fight against the administration, and bring resources back to Arizona.
Well, you know, you're running as a Republican, but even if someone's a Democrat, there's only a handful of them out there that are willing to find on certain issues where they can work with the president. There was one, I can't even remember his name, but I pulled him up because it was on the tariffs. I don't know if it was from New York or California, but I put Dawn on it to try to find him to see if we could get him on the podcast, because you just don't find people that are willing to talk. I mean, I don't know if you heard recently that comedian, well-known, that's on HBO, Bill Maher, that got that invite to the White House and sat down with Trump. And, you know, he's been a harsh critic of Trump. But the thing that at least I respect of him, and we used to be able to respect of more Democrats, is he really believes what he's talking about, and he criticizes the other side, but he's also looking ultimately for solutions, no matter who presents the solution. And now it seems like the other side, even if you have a good idea, I don't want to help you with your idea because that's a win for you. Even if it's a win for the people, it's a win for you, and that gives you power. There's this whole it's anti everything now. And so, but the question is, what are you for? I mean, we can get to what you align with the president on and what you don't align with the president on, but you know, what I want to hear from you and be able to present in our podcast today is, you know, what do you see, just your vision and what you want to do? What's the number one issue for you, for the people in Arizona right now, or your top 3, however you want to address it?
The number one issue is to stop the fentanyl at the border. Okay, That's a very big issue. The second one is I want to get funding to our state and to local governments to address the homeless crisis. Now, based on my history, a lot of people, I've laid out my plan to a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I sat down with Humberto Lopez, owner of HSL, and he's the one that sponsors Gospel Rescue Mission, which is an awesome program. It really is. But there's a whole bunch of people, about 90% of the population don't want help because they don't want to give up the drugs. That's why stopping the fentanyl is the number one issue. We've got to do that. Second issue, we need to, and it's second, and probably just as important as the first, we need to address the human trafficking, okay? On the reservations, and I want to speak on this because no one speaks on this. You know, if you Google it and you look, there's really not a lot about it, but there are women disappearing from the reservations. No one ever talks about it. That's why they have the red hands out across the mouth. Mm-hmm. It's a reminder of the women that they've lost in the tribes. And this is something that the media doesn't talk about, nobody talks about. And it's something that needs to be addressed. We need to address the homeless trafficking, the loss of the children that disappeared, the children that are being brought across the border.
Right.
You know, they're not coming across the border anymore. Go Trump. But Biden let it happen. Okay? The prior congressional leader let it happen. There's a whole bunch of congressional leaders in Washington right now that turn their eyes to it. So, and I don't know why anyone would ignore children being trafficked.
We have a governor that's let it happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we can throw a little blame her way, can't we?
We can throw blame to a lot of these people.
Yeah.
But the American people need to really realize these things that actually happen. There's no denying it. I mean, everyone knows about 350,000 children that disappeared that Trump's people have been finding now. Okay. We still got a lot more to find.
Yeah, even if they're okay, just not having a record of them and knowing that they're okay is not okay. That's
Right.
that's not an acceptable thing. But that's what they did, that did happen. And, you know, hopefully now with less crossings across the border, you have less people trying to come across, you know, Mexico. And nobody likes to talk about this, is that they actually give young girls pills, abortion pills, because they're likely to get raped on their way to the United States. And I don't know how and when you encourage people to cross, that's what you're also encouraging. And I don't know how people are okay with that.
Yeah, I don't either. And let me tell you, my dad was a lifelong Democrat. So was my mother. Okay. My dad used to hate Trump. Boy, when I mentioned Trump's name, rage would fill his face. I mean, true rage, true hate. And my dad's not a man that hates anybody, but he hated Trump until I took him down to the border. I said, hey, Dad, let's go down to the border for the day. Yeah, all right. So he gets in the truck. We go down. We go over meet Mr. Chilton. He's a rancher over in Tucson. Yeah, he's a pretty famous rancher, actually. So we jumped in Mr. Chilton's truck, and he drove us across the ranch. Then we went down the wall, and my dad's talking to all the illegals, and my dad speaks Spanish, and he's asking them, you know, how long you been in the desert, and, you know, how'd you get over here, and all these questions. And the only answer they got was they've been in the desert for 30 days. So I said, let me ask you something, Dad. Do they look like, you know, they were wearing brand new clothes, brand new shoes, no dirt on the shoes whatsoever. I said, do they look like they've been in the desert for 30 days? He said, no. I said, all right. You see the groups? There's like 7, 8 in a group. They're probably about 20 minutes apart or so. Yeah. So we can agree that the cartel, that someone's bringing them over here in a car, and the car can only hold 7 or 8 at a time, and it takes about 20 minutes to go from here to there. He goes, well, that makes sense. I said, all right. So, are the cartel humanitarians? Oh, hell no. I said, oh, okay. So they're probably going to have to pay them, right? And my dad goes, well, I would imagine. You see anything of value with them, Dad? My dad goes, oh my God, I think I'm going to be sick. The children. They had to pay the cartel some way. And I know it's the children, and I knew it was disgusting. And I'd already explained to my dad that the reason Trump wanted the wall built and he wants them to come through a port of entry, not just anywhere along the border, they would feel free to come across, was for the children. And to make sure that we could check that drugs aren't coming across and that the children would be people they belonged with. Trump used to do the DNA test. Remember the children in cages? Well, they only split them apart and they did the DNA test. The DNA test was to verify that the children were with actually a family member. And before, when Trump was last in office, he was doing that. About 30% of the time, the children did not belong with the people they were with.
That's a huge number.
Yeah.
That's not a small number.
No. So these are not people just bringing over their loved ones, their children over here. These are people trafficking the children across the border. And when it was, we had an open border, and under Biden, these children were coming across unchecked, unvetted, and that's why we wound up losing 350,000 kids. That was when my dad's. He got sick. He said, oh, we need to finish this. We need to build this wall, and we need Trump back in office. He changed from Democrat to Republican that day, and he's a big Trump supporter.
You're listening to the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy. And I'm the guy that's going to keep grinding and grinding, and we have some great guests that are going to continue to come on the show. Check it out by hitting that subscribe button so you can be notified. You know, hit that follow, hit the like, just whatever you can do and share it. We appreciate you. That's the price of admission to our show, is just you hitting that subscribe. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. Yeah, that's a good story, but it's actually even better story because we did talk to your wife a little bit, and you and I got to talk for a few minutes before we started here. When you talked about how important the fentanyl issue and that being number one in homelessness, that's really important to you because you have personal experience with that, and I'll let you share what you want to share about that you're comfortable with.
Oh, I'm comfortable. I'm an open book. When I came
There's no other way to be, is there?
Yeah, no, I came into this thing, I took off my armor, I dropped down and said, here I am, I'm a flawed man, okay? I'm not Jesus. There's only one Jesus. And I know a lot of politicians want to run around like they're perfect in every way. And that's not a good move because none of us are perfect. And when you tell everyone you're perfect and then they find a chink in the armor, they start picking away at the chinks and till the armor's destroyed. And there lays a flawed man that lied to everybody. So I came out and I threw my whole life right out there. Go for it. Now they can't attack me and say, oh, well, you tried to be something you weren't. I am who I am. I have two boys. They were hooked on heroin. They got hooked on fentanyl. I'm a tough dad. I believe man sink or swim. That's the way my dad raised me. I'd help them now and then, but nothing I could do for them until they got up and they were ready. They both wound up going to prison, and my son's mother, they both called, they would call their mom. I wouldn't accept their phone calls. You got in there, you got to do your own. No one helped me when I was in there. So he wound up telling his mom, you know what, Mom? She said, what are you going to do when you get out? He said, I'm going to do everything my dad did. My dad did it, I can do it. So he came out. They both came out. I put them to work, gave them jobs. Well, one of them now, they're both clean, been clean for a couple of years now. One of them's now working for Del Webb, Sun City, and Tucson, because there's one here in Phoenix, but there's one in Tucson.
Okay.
And he's got a career there, good job, and he's doing great. Got his own apartment, his own vehicle. He's doing fantastic. And my other son is now running both of my companies, and he's doing amazing. So I know what it's like to be a parent, has a child that's lost, and you don't know what to do or who to turn to. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm running. That's one of the reasons I'm running for Congress, because for every parent out there that has a child that's lost, I'm the answer. I'm there for them. So.
Yeah, we definitely, because it's throughout the whole country. I mean, I don't think it really until people like the Governor Abbott of Texas and some others started shipping some folks to places like New York, until they really got a taste of it, understood how serious the problem was, that, it was a problem for them, these, a few thousand people or however many it was, when they would get that over the course of a few months. And it's like, that's like every day here, every day. That's how hard it is. But they got a taste of it, and it wasn't, because we needed help here. Arizona needed help. And this is a country issue. This state or Texas or, anybody along the border shouldn't have to deal with that alone. So, hopefully, things continue on. It's been pretty good so far, just in the policy itself, besides I believe in finishing the wall, but just not having policies where you're inviting people, like I'm sure you're familiar with that app that they had where you could kind of check yourself into the country, yourself into the U.S. before you crossed, and, just come on in.
Well, you know what? They had Wi-Fi at the end of the wall. Okay. I don't know if you've been at the wall in Tucson. Okay. There's a border wall in Tucson.
Okay.
There's a port called Sasebe. Okay. And if you go up 14 miles, well, I haven't been there in a while, and I know they're working on the wall, but, a couple months ago, if you went up about 14 miles, the wall stops. Okay. That's where everyone was coming around. The Border Patrol would drive up, and all the Border Patrol were doing was driving up, picking them up, bringing them to a shelter near you.
Right.
That's all they were doing. So it was a major problem, but at the wall, they had the app. And you'd go there, and the password was backdoor 44.
Wow.
Obama. Backdoor 44th president. So, I thought that was a little crazy, but that was the code. And you just, I didn't access it because along with that, it gives them access to your location. So,
sure.
Which is how they're running around picking everybody up right now. If you wonder how they know where everybody is, right there.
So you talked a little bit about your two businesses. How did you get into starting your painting businesses?
Well, after I walked out of prison, after I'd found Christ, and which later on I proved, I finally got the state to acknowledge that I didn't commit a crime. I hadn't been charged with a crime. I hadn't been given any due process, and I didn't have a conviction. They finally admitted it and conceded that I was right. That's not my opinion. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, it was my opinion." No, this isn't my opinion. The state conceded that I did not commit the crime, and the courts ruled I did not commit the crime. It's not my opinion.
It took a long time to get them to do that, but that's actually happened.
I've had a lot. Yes, I've had several of the medias come out and say that, and I want to make sure everyone's very clear on this.
Absolutely.
The state absolutely admitted I was innocent and that I had never been convicted. So no due process, no nothing. State admitted that. Judge ruled on it. Anyways, after that, I came out and I went to work for a company called Express Painting. Worked there 10 years. I'd found Christ. I just wanted to get ahead in life, and I hadn't won yet. I wound up wanting to grow, do something more. So I left Express Painting, and I started a company called Butierez Painting, and I built that up. Within 1 year, people were blown away. They'd never seen a company grow as fast as mine. And I used to tell them, listen, I may have just started my company, but I didn't just start painting. I mean, everybody knew me. I've been painting for years.
Good point.
85. And so my company grew, and then I wound up winning the state case. And then I wound up going and buying Express Painting, the company I used to work for, so I own both companies now. And I'm driving around town, and I'm just, because pondering the mysteries of life, and I just thought, why would God do this? To put me through all this. I lost my children, the mother of my children, everything I owned. I rebuilt it back, but it was so hard, 10 years of your life just living in a cell. And then it hit me. It was through that time, through all the struggles I went through. I had gone through the period of being homeless and addicted, and then I got violated, put back in prison, and found Christ. But I seen the homeless walking around, and I realized just that I'm the guy that can address that. I'm the guy that can help these people. And I decided to run for Congress. And here we are now.
Well, being a recovering alcoholic myself, sober for 16 years, nobody can help another alcoholic like an alcoholic can, and so nobody can help another addict like an addict can, and nobody can help, truly. I mean, people may care, but if you've never been homeless, and I haven't truly been homeless like that, I've always found a couch or something to sleep on or something, because I had some crazy woman in my life, but not the same thing. But, you've experienced those things, and nobody can help or really understand or have the same perspectives as somebody that's been through it. Yep. And I think that's, what gives you a special look at it, a special advantage to be able to bring and talk to your colleagues when you get to Washington, right? That's what we want.
Oh, yeah,
you're talking about it, not on theory,
right,
but this is what it's like. And, I do want to stay on that for just a second, because a lot of money has been thrown at the homeless problem. And I don't know where the money's going when it goes to California, because nothing has gotten better. I mean, I think one time there was a proposal years ago where they bought shopping carts and gave them to the homeless. Like that was some type of solution or something. But, just my wife and I, a week ago we went to the Suns game last week, probably in the middle of the week. And, a guy on the corner, homeless, loud, talking to himself. That's mental illness. What are some solutions, or what do you see? What can we do to give people help that may not, like you said, not ready or don't want help?
Let me give you an example. We'll go back to the gal that was on the Pima County Board of Supervisors. She was the chair, and now she's running for Congress. Okay. Well, they actually took some money, and they put $400,000 aside for the homeless at Tucson. Remember the 900 homeless camps in Tucson? They set $400,000 aside, and I actually went in and confronted them on this because it really upset me. And they gave $20 million for the homeless they were bringing illegally across from other countries. Okay, $400,000 for Americans, and $20 million for criminals. Okay. That's hard to comprehend. Now, my plan to address this, okay, and I've talked to a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of different people. First off, I can't do anything. It's a local issue. I can, however, come in with my plan, my ideal, and I can go to Washington and lay my ideal out to Washington and get the other congressmen to get involved, and they will get involved because it's a problem everywhere. And they will have an opportunity to work with a man that actually has a plan. Now, we got people like Regina Romero in Tucson, okay? She doesn't care about the homeless. They're just moving them around, trying to make this neighborhood look good, and then they go over and move them this way, and they come back here. I mean, they're just wasting their money moving people around. She has no idea how to deal with this. I don't even think she cares to deal with this. But I need to have a congressional hearing. I need to get them down here and say, hey, I need some congressmen to be down here in Tucson. And we need to meet with the local government. And we all need to sit down and see why I need funding from Washington. Let these people come to the hearing, tell us how much money they need from Washington, and I'll lay out my plan to everybody right there in Washington. And here's my plan. Start enforcing our laws, okay? You got homeless sitting at bus stops smoking. They're hitting the pipes. They're shoplifting. They're all possessing drugs on them. They're breaking laws every day, all night, all over the city, okay? We start enforcing those laws. The police officers are cut free by the mayor who doesn't want them to arrest anybody, and we arrest them. They go to court. They sit before a judge. The judge gives them an option. Okay, here, you got two choices. One, you can sit here. I'm going to put bond on you for $1,000. I know you don't have $1,000, so you're probably going to get stuck sitting here for 6 months. Or you can join this program this new program we started. Okay. Marana has a prison that was emptied out. It's an empty prison. It's a perfect prison. They go through a detox program, 30 days. Okay. After this detox program, we will know which ones need mental health, the mental,
right,
and which ones just need to get their butts to work.
Just need to get and stay clean.
Because this is what happened with my boys. They went to prison. They wound up going and getting jobs, going to work, and now they're doing great. That will be the majority of these people. Even the ones that are talking to themselves are benched over, or hunched over. My sons were at that spot on the fentanyl. That's what fentanyl does to people. But once you clean them up off it, you can determine who needs what, so that you're not wasting taxpayer money. The ones go to work. And here's the reason for work. They go out, they make a paycheck. A third of their paycheck goes in to cover their room and board. Because why should the taxpayers have to pay for this? Okay? See, I'm a working man. I'm a taxpayer. And it really drives me crazy when the government just wants to throw money at shit. I'm happy to help them, but let's help them with something that I got, credit that it's going to work, something. Right. Give me some kind of credit, guarantee that this is going to work, something. Anyways, so they pay a third towards their room and board. Now we're building up their self-esteem. We're teaching them responsibility. And we have to give them an opportunity to earn their self-esteem. Because if we get them off drugs and we just turn them back out in the streets, they're going to return back to drugs because you didn't give them back an opportunity to get their self-esteem. You give them a job, they earn a paycheck, they get a little self-esteem. They pay their room and board. They're pissed off about it, but they'll get over it. They're still paying your debt, paying your bills.
Right,
is a self-esteem builder.
Yes, it is.
Okay?
Of course, yes,
and
I totally agree.
When they got enough money saved up and they're ready to go out to the real world, they get to leave. The charges that they have there, because they get a certificate of completion, the judge dismisses the charges. They're gone. They got a second chance. They get to go on with their life. Now, how you make this work, and this is where a lot of people have a problem, that people have a hard time enforcing things now. I've been a boss since I was 21. I've been running crews. And let me tell you how you make sure all your men don't go sideways on you. The first one that steps out of line, you send them home, fire them, whatever you got to do, and all the others step in line. Okay, so with this program, the first one, it says in the morning, I don't feel like going to work today, or gets mouthy with the cop, or whatever he does that's outside the rules. You don't give him a warning. You put the handcuffs on him, you take him back to jail, and you bring someone back to his place. Guess what? That'll be the last person that says, I don't want to go to work in the morning. Okay, that's the way that is. It's
tough love, and tough love works. There's no other. We're the answer in a family that has an addict, and you didn't do it for your sons. You chose not to be an enabler, because that doesn't work. That's not caring for them by enabling them. That just because they're going to use even longer. You step back, you let them hit bottom, and it hurts. It's hard when you're a parent to let a kid hit bottom, because the bottom, when we're talking about addiction, can be death. even for alcoholics. It's much rarer in alcoholics, but it can be. But there's no other way
No.
is hitting that bottom, and you don't do that when you enable. Well, that's the same strategy that local and state governments have used, is enabling people to continue on with it. So what happens when you enable it? You get more of what you've already gotten.
It leads to death.
For
Guaranteed death.
Guaranteed death.
Guaranteed death.
At least the other way, people, they have a chance.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I think people are more open and will be more open to your plan now. And I got to tell you, I'm a little blown away because I appreciate you that, because, we haven't had like some conversation before we sat down here. I'm learning about you as we're doing this. But what I really appreciate about you is that I asked you, and you didn't like work around and not answer the question. You actually presented a real plan or a real idea. And when it comes to homelessness, I can't tell you when's the last time I've heard somebody articulate something. It's not happening. And that's, if Democrats want to understand why they're losing elections, it's because of issues. You're not talking about issues. Your 100% focus is on hating an orange man. That's it. Hate orange man. You got to be pro something. You can be, instead of being, against homelessness, you got to be pro work. You got to be pro something else. You got to be for stuff.
Yeah.
I always tell people, Mother Teresa wasn't anti-war. She was pro-peace. You got to be for something. You got to focus on something that is positive and work towards that.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I really appreciate what you've said because I'm into politics. So I'm not your average person or your average voter who only pays attention a little while or maybe doesn't pay attention at all or only around voting time. It's something that's interested me for a long time. And I've talked to, when I had my radio show, a lot of politicians, both local, state, and even, in Washington at various levels. And you probably have articulated more and better, even people who were the head of groups that dealt with homelessness. You've probably given one of the better plans and ideas of how to do something that I've heard. And then, but that also is going to take bringing people together. And this is a purple state. So with the state of the country and that we have two camps now, what do you see about that? How do we get that common ground again? I don't know if you remember back in the 80s, I can't remember whoever was the head of the Democrats in the House. Look that up. Head of the Democrats in the House when Reagan was president. I know this right on the tip of my tongue. Tip O'Neill. I got it. So Tip O'Neill, he was a staunch Democrat, and he would go toe-to-toe with the president or any Republican, but, they still went out for a beer or a drink. They still talked as human beings. And that's not happening anymore. That's not happening anymore. And in fact, if you're a Democrat and you are willing to listen to a Republican, like we just had Bill Maher visit the president at the White House, he gets criticized from Democrats. How dare you? How dare you talk to the president? He said, what's the alternative? That we don't talk to each other? Well, that does work. So with that kind of as a background, what are your thoughts on working with the other side to get things done? Because like I said, we're a very conservative state in our values, basically, and, how we believe about guns and various amendments. But how do we bring our purple state together?
Well, guess what? I love the question. And again, I got a detailed answer. During the last election, okay, I won 20,000 Democrats. That's why I got such a large number. Okay, I stepped into a race where there was 79,000 Republicans, 180,000 Democrats. and I got almost 100,000 votes. Not 20,000 were Democrats. And I'm only winning more over. I'm winning them over all the time. Because any Democrat that can be open-minded and listen to me, they're free to ask me questions. I'll answer their questions. I will sit down and talk to any Democrat. I challenge them to come and talk to me with an open mind, because these Democrats that have taken over the Democratic Party are extremists. The individuals that are getting ready to run against each other, the big name Democrats, are extremists. They're interested in issues that don't matter to the majority of the district. They only matter to their little extremist group. And there's a whole bunch of Democrats that are waking up to this. And when I talk to them, they wake up. I had a Democrat. I got kicked out of an old folks home the other day. It was all good, but I went and played bingo with these gals, these older ladies, and we had a great time. And they all knew who I was, and everything was going. They were all Democrats, and I just playing bingos with them. I wasn't pushing anything on them. And I was leaving, and this, "Oh, Mr. Butierez, will you come back for the barbecue?" And I said, "When is it?" And they told me. I said, "You know what? I'll see what I can do." So I wound up working it, and I show up, and all the ladies are happy, and they're all, I'm hugging them all and walking around, and I come around, and this lady goes, "Excuse me, who are you?" And I said, "Well, ma'am, I'm Daniel Butierez. I'm running for United States Congress. Democrat or Republican?" I said, "Well, ma'am, I'm a Republican." "Well, I'm a Democrat. But I'm willing to listen to what you have to say. Can you answer some questions?" I said, "Sure." She goes, "Are you going to represent you're going to represent me or just the Republicans?" I said, "Ma'am, I'm running to represent CD7. I'm going to represent you, the Republicans, the independents. I'm running to represent the district. And I'll tell you why, because I just spent 22 years with a guy that didn't represent anything that we have in value, okay? Right. And it's divided us. You need to be able to represent everybody if you want to bring unity into the community. And by the way, that's my motto. Unity
into the community?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hope, unity, community is our motto. So she goes, okay. And what about the deportation? She goes, "Now, I don't like Trump." And I said, "Okay, I can respect that." I said, "Ma'am, we need to do something with immigration. We need to get the people that came in here illegally out. That they got to go, and then we got to sit down and start working on our immigration reform. The last guy broke it. He absolutely broke our system. We need to start doing resident alien cards, which are visas, work visas. It's the law. We need to start getting those out to the people and start helping them. In my office, my doors are going to be open, and I can help speed this process up. The last person we had here, you couldn't get them on the phone. You call me, someone's going to answer you, and someone's going to get back to you, and we're going to give you advice on how to get this done legally, and which the other guy was supposed to be doing. We wouldn't have this big problem. Anyways, I explained that to her, and she was like, "I'm voting for you." And then some lady lost it. The whole table said they were voting for me, and then some other lady gets up. She starts yelling, and, "He's a Republican. We're all Democrats. He's got to go. He's got to go." And the lady goes, "I don't want to feel like fighting with her today." And the lady goes, "I'm sorry." So I told him, gave him all my card. I said, "Call me. We'll talk. You can ask me anything else you want to ask me." But she was afraid if I stayed there any longer, I was gonna
convert the whole group.
The whole room, yeah.
That is great. But that's how it is. You have people that are just standing up, yelling with their hands over their ears. They don't want to hear anything. It's just, I've never seen hate anything like this before. And I'm old. I'm 57, so I've been around a minute too.
Man, you're making me really feel old.
Well, but I've seen a few things, and I saw what Reagan did, and the problem has never been fixed. And we've had these immigration bills in the past that where they tried to get everything done in one big beautiful bill, and it didn't work. Or what they would do is they would pass it, and then certain parts would get implemented, but not other parts would get implemented. And so people were tired of it, like me. And it's like, you know what? First, you got to prove it to me now. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, you have to prove it to me. You have to prove that first, we got to close the border. And then second, then we need to work on immigration and how we can get more people in here legally on a temporary basis who just want to work. Because when I was a kid, like I said, I grew up in the suburbs of Toledo in a small town called Genoa, 2,200 people. And I raised pigs at my uncle's place. I mean, I was in FFA. We were, it was a farming community, and we had tomatoes and cucumbers. And there are people that would come up and work, for a season or two, and then they'd leave. That doesn't happen anymore like that. And I get this is a great country, and people want to be in here, and I want to let people in too. I just, and I want people to have a path to be able to do that. And I may be different than some Republicans. Like, I'm not trying to stop legal immigration, and I want to improve legal immigration that we can let more people out, but filter out Chinese people who are coming through Mexico that probably most likely are spying or somehow associated with the state in not a good way, or they're coming from a terrorist country across the border. The best way to get into this country is across the Mexican border, no matter where you're from. And I mean, I don't know what the percentage is off the top of my head, but it's a high percentage of people coming from Honduras and Venezuela and just other places. We're not talking about Mexicans coming across anymore. It's people from other countries, and some of which do not like us. Yep. I want to keep those out permanently, but you can only do that with a secure border. And then obviously after we improve immigration, then that's great for everybody. I think but we have to be able to control it, and it's been out of control. So, and then the problems, your number one issue, talking about the fentanyl and human trafficking and stuff, that's all connected with it. They're inseparable in dealing with the cartels, and they're trying to figure out another way right now. They're not going to stop. I mean, we can do our best and close off the border and do things, but they're going to try to find another way. But that doesn't mean we should stop. We'll have to deal with whatever way they find then in doing that. So we'll have to talk again, but as we kind of maybe wrap things up a little bit, what's something that you were thinking maybe you wanted to get across to people that are maybe hearing from you in this kind of format for the first time and really getting to know you, that you want people to know that we haven't addressed today?
Well, as you know, I'm running for United States Congress, and there's a lot of people getting in the different primary races. Ultimately, this race is about a general. It's about winning an election. It's not about winning a primary. So I guarantee you, I am the only, as a matter of fact, I'll put it this way. I've had a lot of people say this. CD7 is not a winnable race for a Republican. But I'm not just any Republican. I'm a man that connects with the people. And when I talk to the Democrats, they realize that I'm someone that's actually going to help issues that they believe in. I am the only Republican that can win this race. So when you go to the ballot, remember, it's not about a primary. It's about a general, and I need everyone to get behind me, and let's win this thing.
Now, what things do you have now, website or social media that we can point people to?
You can go, my website is butierezforcongress.com. I'm on Facebook, Butierez for Congress. I'm on Twitter.
X.
I'm on X, Instagram, TikTok. All of them are Butierez for Congress. So.
Well, you got to do something about TikTok, man. I'm a TikToker. I've grown my business for TikTok, but I'm mad because I wanted Trump to do what he did and like extend their, not shutting them down and stuff. But they've become the worst of all the social platforms now on shutting down speech.
Oh.
Like on Facebook, it's gotten better. Like you can say some things and, I use some colorful language sometimes and I'm not getting hammered on like Facebook like I used to. There was a few years ago. That's how I got on TikTok. There was a year back because of Trump and I would post political stuff. I was banned for 30 days, 6 times on TikTok. We call it being in Facebook jail. Well, I would regularly.
Was it because you didn't say poo-poo or pew-pew?
Yeah, could not use the B word at all. But like right now on TikTok, like I had some things where like I wasn't even bad at all. And I can't believe what other people get away with saying and how they do it. But TikTok is really, really bad right now. On X, you can do anything on X as long as you're not like doing or saying things that, are literally calling for violence or something like that. You can say anything you want on X, which I think is good. That's the whole idea is. And people will determine if they like it or not. And that's what I think, or what I got from you here today. The most important thing in politics right now, and the reason Trump was successful is being authentic. And that's how you can convert those people or make them that you're not just saying it, because that's what we got from politicians for years, is just telling us what we wanted to hear. And Trump has said things that you don't always want to hear. Sometimes the things are hard to hear, but he's authentic about it. It's no different than these tariffs. Look, I don't know what you expected from the guy, but in the late 80s, we have footage of him being interviewed in the late 80s, talking about tariffs and how China's fucking us. Yep. Well, that's the guy. We chose that guy. So like our Democrats will ask us, is this really what you voted for? Yeah. It really is. I know you're surprised, but don't be. The dude has been saying this for this long. But again, I appreciate you and your authenticity today and being really, I really felt like you were forthright and just being honest and being who you are. So Daniel, thanks for coming. Appreciate
you for having me.
All right, the rest of you, that's it. That's a wrap. This is the Outlaw Apostle Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Neff. I'm the fucking guy.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That to me, you really playing with your life.